So our speaker today is going to talk about a hybrid sales approach that today's buyers require and the HubSpot tools that can help you deliver remarkable experiences and close more deals. All client engagements begin on her desk, where she works with our consultants to formulate the most appropriate inbound marketing and sales programs to help them achieve their goals. Prior to her role at the agency, she was an advertising manager at Gannett, one of the nation's largest media companies, and she has over 10 years of experience in advertising sales. And so she definitely understands the complex relationships between marketing and sales in organizations. So with that, take it away, Nicole.
Thank you, Kelly. And can you just confirm that you can see my full screen here?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. All right, well, good morning, everyone. I see a lot of familiar names, so hello to those of you that I know and to those of you that maybe I don't. And as Kelly said, welcome to our Q4 HubSpot User Group meetup on sales effectiveness in a post-pandemic world. I'm Nicole Mertes. I work in business development and client services, as Kelly explained, at Weidert Group. For those of you that don't know us, we're a Diamond HubSpot partner, and we do help companies in complex industries grow with inbound marketing and sales. My schooling and experience and passion, as Kelly said, is in marketing and sales. And I'm presenting today as a daily user of the HubSpot CRM and many of the sales tools that I'll be sharing later on in this presentation today. So if you were to ask me what my sales superpower is, I'd say that I enjoy helping people and figuring things out. And that probably sounds a little bit cheesy, but I think it's honest and accurate. And it became clear as I was trying to figure out what pictures to put on the screen. I was trying to think about, well, what do I do in my free time? I'll put something up here. But let's be real. I'm a mother of 2 high schoolers. This is my family here. And so my time is spent supporting them in their activities, whether that's theater or music or soccer, and of course, preparing for life after high school. And I had to add a picture of my dog. This is our family's first and only dog, our COVID dog, Ezzy, who I help and care for despite her patterns of destruction. Everyone that works with me knows she's destroyed many things in my house, and she's very loud on my Zoom calls from home with her barking. So that does bring us, believe it or not, to our agenda today, because I'm going to go beyond dogs barking during work calls that we've all probably experienced during the pandemic and share some more meaningful stats and trends related to sales. I'm going to touch on the new hybrid salesperson that really represents the best of both the pre-pandemic and pandemic times. And I'll share some tips on what the selling habits of a hybrid salesperson is, and specifically for virtual meetings and also beyond meetings, because beyond meetings is important as well. And salespeople spend a lot of times not just in meetings. And lastly, I'll share some of our favorite HubSpot sales tools that make being a hybrid salesperson, which I'll explain more, possible in today's world. Okay, so here we are about 20 months into the pandemic, and we've all experienced changes, big changes, and a lot of uncertainty. And the pandemic at best, and Greg, I'm going to steal this from your last presentation that you did at Manufacturing First, but the pandemic at best in business was like a non-fatal car crash. The uncertainty of the pandemic has really forced a lot of changes, some good, some not so good. And for business, if it wasn't there already for people, it forced the buyer-seller relationship online at maximum speed. So digitization was always going to happen, right? We're trending that way, but COVID simply accelerated its arrival. And according to this graph here from McKinsey, 70% of interactions with sales reps are already done online. And when I say online, that could be remote or self-serve, which is really emerging in the B2B world and has been very important in the B2C world. If we talk about B2B buyers, you'll see here that 30% are comfortable making initial purchase virtually today. That's from Forrester. But take a look at this stat from Gartner. It says by 2025, they project that in just 3 years, 80% of B2B sales will be online. That's a big number. And if you're thinking what I thought, which is, well, that's just for small transactional stuff, maybe not for the bigger deals that may be more relevant to you in a B2B world or in an industrial world. Take a look at this here. LinkedIn reports that deals worth $500,000 and more are closing without meeting in person. So it's not just that small stuff. We also have a large number of customers that do not want to return to in-person sales. So this here says only 20% of customers say they'd like to return to this. That is also a very impressive number. Let that soak in. Only 20% of customers say they hope to return to in-person sales. So we're simply not going to go back to the way it was. And hey, that's okay, right? We've survived changes before, poor Blockbuster, right? But great things have come from it. And in this world today, in sales, one of those great things is virtual meetings. We've learned that they can be very effective. Here it says 63% of sales leaders believe that virtual sales meetings are equally effective as face-to-face meetings. So the way to look at this is that communication expectations have changed. There are a lot of different ways to communicate, to have meetings. You'll see here, what is your preferred method of communication with a selling company? You'll see here listed some pretty big numbers on phone, video call, email, face-to-face. There are other responses, chat, text, website, LinkedIn, etc. So this is from a Sandler sales survey, and you can see there are a lot of different preferences on how to communicate with a seller. So the point here is that it's not just one of these, it's all of these that we need to embrace as a salesperson coming out of the pandemic. Really what we want to focus on is what the buyer's preference is and what's right for the situation, what's right for the buyer, what's right for the seller. So today's buyers are empowered now more than ever. They demand a new and fast, always online, customer-centric, technology-enabled world of buying and selling. The buyer today has many priorities, which means probably a shorter attention span. They have limited time to research vendors, and they're demanding customized information now. Having that information at their fingertips is very important, and it needs to be relevant to them. Lots of stops and starts. So with this uncertainty, there are more stops and starts in the sales process and decision making. We're kind of moving, as we go along here. We're finding that video is becoming strongly preferred over phone, almost an expectation. If I can see your face, why wouldn't we talk face to face, hop on a Zoom call versus, I think it's very strange now when I get a telephone call. It just feels weird. They expect a great digital experience, and I don't think that that's anything terribly new. I think that's been an expectation for some time. But again, those expectations, and we really ramped up on those expectations over the last 20 months. Buyers still want to be understood, not sold to, and they still value trust. Relationships still matter. Those things are just as important as they were before. It's just that we may go about it in a different way, especially with different tools to help us. So from Sandler again, what are the most important things to buyers? What are important things when considering one vendor, one company versus another to work with? You'll see things here. These all rated very highly on the list. One is that the salesperson is demonstrating strong knowledge of specific challenges. They expect easily consumed informational content. So you need that relevant content that answers their questions available to them and in many different formats. They expect timely response to inquiries. and tools can help here. We'll get to that later. And overall knowledge of their company and objectives. And this to me means selling with context. So you take what you know from the information that you have and have gathered to really help you in the sales process and really try to get to understand the customer. So what does this mean for today's salesperson? I think it means really adapting as a hybrid salesperson. So to understand what that means, let's travel back in time to 21 months ago on the left side of the screen here. The norm, if you think about it, was you were either an outside rep or an inside rep. There's a clear line between the two. It meant for prospecting, it meant feet on the street. It was knocking on doors. Virtual calls were more than likely a backup plan. It wasn't plan A. It was typically plan B. If we couldn't meet in person, maybe we could meet virtually. Or if there was a need to do that versus meeting in person. And lastly, salespeople are responsible, and some still are, for activities before the sale, finding leads, during the sales process, after the sale, into service. So a lot of feelings of being overwhelmed, and maybe that came from a little lack of alignment between different departments and really defining, the common shared goal and how each part of the organization can take a part to reach that goal. So the hybrid salesperson of today, on the other hand, is how we've changed to leverage, again, what came, the best of what came from the pandemic. So hybrid salesperson can really control the meeting and close the deal in both virtual and in-person settings. It's all about adapting to the way that the customer wants to buy. They're less overwhelmed with admin and activities if they're creating more selling time with automation and the right tools and processes. They have faster response times because they're using those tools to help them, and they also have shorter sales cycles because the empowered buyer has already done research before talking to the salesperson. And lastly, the hybrid salesperson continually works to earn the right to the buyer's business. So let's talk a little bit more about those selling habits of that hybrid salesperson, specifically starting with meetings. So there's pros and cons to the virtual meetings that we've been forced to embrace more now than ever. But we've learned that, for one, they certainly can save time and money. Think about a salesperson that may have typically been driving 2 hours to a meeting and 2 hours back. You also had the time during the meeting. That can eat up an entire day for a salesperson. We can connect with more participants virtually from any location, and that means we can have better interactions with more stakeholders because of this. Some people also have reported that virtual meetings can be a real equalizer for introverts and extroverts. So on Zoom, for example, everyone has the same real estate in that Brady bunch box that they're in, and introverts tend to open up more, and extroverts may refrain from monopolizing the conversation. And lastly, again, this is just a sampling of things, but one of the nice things about virtual meetings is you can have your notes right in front of you to make you look more poised and polished and professional in your sales calls. So we're not going to get rid of the virtual meetings. Again, that's the point of the hybrid, right? Sometimes we'll do virtual, sometimes we'll do in person, but we know they can be very beneficial in the sales process. And we could spend a whole day or days presenting on effective virtual meetings. But here again, just some pro tips to consider on these virtual meetings that I think have emerged and have become best practices over the last 20 months. So number one, you may choose to conduct less face-to-face meetings in the early stages of the sales process and then have more face-to-face near the final stages, because during the final stages, your likelihood of closing the deal is higher and your investment of time may be more worth it at the end of that of those deal stages. This is when the buyer's shortlist has been made, you're on it, and they're probably evaluating you on what it would be like to work with you, and face-to-face is really valuable for that. Going in and out of screen share is a really great best practice and habit to have. You can do this with, instead of presenting a canned PowerPoint example, have a floating deck ready, which really just means you have some graphs and some content, some charts, some images ready to go that you can pull up when the right time surfaces. And you put it back when you're done with it and focus on the faces instead of a screen in a sales call, because slides should aid the communication, not be the communication on these calls. Whiteboarding and collaboration is important. With face-to-face meetings, it's very common. You might have a whiteboard or a flip chart to help visual learners and aid in understanding and communicating. In a virtual meeting, you can really do the same thing with a slide, a blank slide, or a blank Google Doc on your screen to help document key notes from participants, have them see those and be able to tell you if you're off track on something that you're capturing or not. And it helps that visual learner as well. And lastly, recording meetings is a best practice. This helps with pass along value. If somebody couldn't make the meeting, of course, you can share it with them. It can also help you avoid multitasking. If you have something like Otter.ai we've used here, it will provide a transcription of that recording, so you have sales notes right there that you can utilize and avoid, again, that multitasking. All right, well, what about beyond meetings? Well, there's no doubt that tools can really help here, whether it's before or during or after the sale. Here from a LinkedIn survey, we have 54% of salespeople say that sales tools enable them to build stronger relationships. They also say they enable them to close more deals. And this is exactly what tools should do if you're using them and you've chosen the right ones. So the right tools, and we'll go into a bunch of these tools in just a minute, all should help you really spend less time on administrative tasks as well. But the idea here is also enhancing the customer relationships and delivering a very rewarding buyer experience. There's so many of them out there, right? You probably want to jump in and see all of these and use everything that you come across, because they all sound amazing. But I do have one caveat here, and this is something that we've certainly learned as a best practice working with our clients, and that's that you really need, before you start evaluating tools, you really need to get your house in order first. I think this quote from Bill Gates says it all. And I'll read the blue part of the larger quote. It says, automation applied to an inefficient operation will only magnify the inefficiency. So jumping to a tool may not be in your best interest, right? There's some things we need to figure out first. We need processes in place for those to really do their magic. And when it comes to HubSpot sales tools, I made a quick checklist here of what I think the key things are to have in place before you can realize the true value from those sales tools in Sales Hub. The first one is defining qualified leads. And this is important because this will help you prioritize your best leads and be able to segment leads for automation through notifications and proper follow-up. So focus your time on those leads that are the most qualified. You need to know what those are. What is a qualified lead? What is a marketing qualified lead? What is a sales qualified lead? That's really important to make the best use out of the tools, especially in HubSpot. You'll need a disciplined process for lead handoff. So what I mean by that is what leads are you handing off? Are you utilizing lead scoring, for example, to set a threshold of when it hits this lead score, it gets handed off to sales? When are you handing it off? Is it lead scoring or is it something else? And to whom? Who's going to get those leads? Is it a rotation? Is it based on geography? Is it based on the type of company it is? You need to really understand what that process is going to look like to really leverage tools well. You need a process and protocols for connecting with leads, and this will guide you in automating some of that sales follow-up. We never want to automate it so much that it looks spammy or you're just using a template. It always needs to be personalized and customized, but there's a lot of automation you can do if you use that as a best practice to help you with that follow-up. But what is that follow-up? What's the right amount of follow-up? How many touch points, et cetera? And then lastly, mapping your sales process. That'll help you determine the right deal stages to set up in a CRM, for example, so you never lose sight of what deals are active and the stages that they're in. And we're going to cover that more in just a minute here. But the idea here is that once these things are in place, you'll really be able to utilize the sales tools well. Okay, so getting into the sales tools. First here is context. At its very core, the HubSpot CRM can help salespeople sell with context. And buyers expect that today. We've learned that. That's very important. And as HubSpot users, this is a HubSpot user group, you're probably very familiar with the contact and the company timelines like you see on the screen here. But are your salespeople leveraging it? Because there's so much great information there. And sometimes we've come across sales teams that aren't even aware that that's there. So they can provide, these timelines can provide salespeople with history and context for those conversations that they're having. They can see what pages have been visited, what forms have been filled out, what conversations have happened. So they have a really good understanding before they have a conversation. And that does impress the buyer. It is part of those expectations that we talked about earlier. The best part of this, these timelines and HubSpot, as many of you know, is that a lot of this is just automatically populated in HubSpot. So it doesn't require that a salesperson go in and enter a lot of this information. A lot of it is just automatically being populated on that timeline. Okay, the email inbox integration is a very key tool in HubSpot. The Sales Hub includes a bi-directional sync with both Gmail and Office 365. So whether you're working out of HubSpot to send emails or you're working in Gmail or Office 365 to send emails, every interaction can be synced and stored to that contact timeline, hence that, automatic population of the contact timeline here. So you can log and track those emails that you're sending. And you'll also have access to some of HubSpot's sales tools as well, right from your email inbox. As you can see on the screen here, there's the templates, sequences, documents, meetings, snippets, right here, easily accessible from your email. Moving on to tracking deals. We talked about deal stages a little bit before here, and tracking deals with HubSpot's deals board, I think really helps you streamline your sales process across the entire organization. So you make those stages consistent across the board, and it will help ensure that reps are effectively moving prospects through those stages and hopefully expedite the sales process. So if you have Sales Pro or higher, you can automate tasks or processes based on deals. So what does that mean? It means you could send a notification once a deal gets to a proposal stage. It can mean that an email is triggered once a meeting is complete, or it may mean sending a feedback survey once a deal is closed. Lots of possibilities here working within your different deal stages and automation. Also, with automation, let's not forget about automating repetitive tasks. So you can use the workflows tool available professional and higher to automate some of these repetitive tasks. This is just a few of them that we've found to be helpful. One is notifying sales reps when a form submission occurs. Another is sending follow-up emails to leads. Another is assigning a lead to a sales rep based on where they're located, or again, whatever criteria it makes sense for you. And then things like scheduling a task in the CRM when new leads are created. This is just 4 out of a gazillion different things you could do with sales automation. But taking a look at the sales process and what you're doing with leads and trying to identify what are those repetitive tasks that you're doing is important to see if there are things that we could use the HubSpot tool to help us automate and save time. Sequences is a great automation tool within HubSpot. This is one of my favorites in Sales Hub. And this is really for those salespeople that are spending a lot of time reaching out to contacts through email, through social media, making phone calls. This is for those people that are following up on those leads that are generated through inbound marketing. And this is important because you don't just follow up once. You don't make one phone call, send one email, you don't hear back, you're done. We know that it takes several touch points and perseverance to really land that appointment and make contact with that particular lead. So sequences can automate that follow-up. And it does take a little bit of upfront work. You'll see on the screen here what it looks like to build a sequence. Really, you patch together different templates that you have, and then you set up really just how you want those sent out. So send email 1 right when I activate the sequence. 2 days later, send out email 2. 3 days later, send me a task to remind me to pick up the phone and call, and then also check social media. Maybe I can engage on social media. 4 days later, send another email. You can have all those emails ready if you build the right templates. And when you're ready to activate that sequence, you go in and personalize and customize all of those templates. Again, we wouldn't want to use those canned templates. We go in and we customize those for that specific lead and situation. But these are great. And once the sequence is activated for a contact, it automatically stops the sequence when they book a meeting or they email you back. Snippets is something that some people aren't as familiar with. It's very, very easy to use this, very simple in nature. This comes in handy if you're repeatedly typing the same answers to the same questions, or you often type the same text over and over again. You know, maybe that last line in a closing paragraph of all of your emails, for example. You can save time by creating a snippet. So snippets are really just short text blocks. They're limited to 500 characters, and you can insert snippets into company records or emails and chats through simple shortcuts. So if you create a shortcut called #closing, you might set that up so that represents, you know, these 2 sentences that you use in every closing paragraph of an email, for example. You just type in #closing and those appear in that email. So you can save a lot of time with this, but you can also add personalization tokens based on the recipient too with snippets. All right, well, you may be aware that HubSpot has a tasks tool, which is great. Just simply how you can create tasks so you don't forget to do things, but you may not be aware of task queues in HubSpot. And that's the task queue is formerly called the call queue. So some may know it as that, but it allows sales reps to run through task lists or call lists quickly and efficiently. So once you have tasks that you've added to a specific queue, sales reps simply hit play, and each task is presented one by one with all the relevant tools and information shown. So there's no need to navigate elsewhere in HubSpot. So if the task is to send an email, HubSpot is going to have it ready to go so you can send an email. So sales reps can focus on all similar tasks during one focused stretch of time. And you can organize your task queues by category as well, so that if you're sending out emails that all require the same type of messaging, you can do all of those at the same time so that you're not switching back and forth on those different types of messages and types of email correspondence, which, you know, gets you just in the right frame of mind and helps deliver that consistent messaging strategy to buyers and again, saves time. As shown earlier, buyers want documents, they want content and information that's relevant to them, that's easily digestible. And sales reps want access to content and collateral that can help them sell more. So having this document management system, such as HubSpot Documents, is important. It makes it easy to share files with your colleagues and with your prospects. You can store all of them in one place, and then you can also track the sales documents. When your recipient opens them, for example, you can be notified. You can look to see which documents are opened in that library more than others and start to learn which content pieces are really seen as more valuable to the buyers. One-to-one video is another tool that we could spend an entire day or days worth of training on, but I can't tell you how impressive this is, how wonderful this is in the sales process. That one-to-one webcam video, there's definitely a time and place for produced video, but in the sales process, having that video that you can send from your webcam that's just very quick and personalized is a great way to increase your email open rates and to be more personal if you're not there in person or face to face. So you simply use the CRM and the camera connected to your computer with HubSpot's one-to-one video, record and send videos of yourself or create a video of your computer screen. You can also upload an existing video file from your device, but those videos certainly get noticed. I've read somewhere that videos can increase email conversion by 500% or more. They're very effective and very powerful. So again, could spend whole sessions and workshops on this, but certainly a great tool to have and to start getting more familiar with and comfortable with and just using in your day-to-day. Meetings links are great too. You've probably seen these. HubSpot has their own meetings link. There's other tools out there, of course, but this meetings link syncs with your calendar. You can send it out to prospects so they can book time with you without having to go back and forth and back. Does this work? No. Okay. How about that? Oh, that works for me. Does it work? No, it doesn't work for that. We got to start over. Okay. How about here? So you can spend a lot of time as a salesperson scheduling meetings, and these meetings links can be quite the time saver. You can also embed with HubSpot's meetings link you can embed this meetings link on your website, which could be very helpful as well. We actually have a case study with a client that has that on their website. It helped them increase the number of appointments set from website visitors. Conversations and live chat, we've seen this is one of the preferred methods of communication from buyers today. Certainly can use live chat, or you can use chatbots with HubSpot so that you really can be there 24/7 as a sales team. And you can be there to listen and learn from your buyers. This is also a form of self-serve as well for those buyers. So the live chat and conversations tools in HubSpot can be very helpful in the sales process too. Playbooks is something that's available in Enterprise and Up. Playbooks really help you document and share best practices around different selling scenarios, such as a discovery call. So you'll see the example of the discovery call on the screen here. And it just walks you through. It's just a template for on the discovery call. Ask these questions, document the answers here. Just takes a lot of the thinking out of the, did I remember to ask that and that and that, and helps you flow through a call better. So that is a very helpful feature as a salesperson. A lot of consistency there in the way that you're moving through your sales process as well. And I don't have a separate slide for this, but you can do calls through HubSpot as well. And there is a calls feature that you can record and review your calls through HubSpot as well. And lastly, on this very quick tour of these sales tools is the prospects tool. So this is helpful to see who's visiting your site. Of course, if a visitor fills out a form, they become a contact in your HubSpot portal, they become a lead, right? But what about those that don't fill out the forms? How do we know who's on your site? We may not know the exact person that has been on your site, but we do know through the HubSpot prospects tool, the companies that are visiting your site. It identifies the companies based on an IP address, and then it automatically populates relevant data into your CRM. And that's things like the company name, the location, number of visits, and page views, for example, like what you see here. So those are the tools of HubSpot and how you can use them to be a really effective hybrid salesperson in today's world, making the best of both virtual and in-person meetings. Thank you for letting me share these with you today. We do have some more great information about inbound sales and how sales can work hand in hand with inbound marketing on our website. And the link is here. We're going to send that out in the follow-up email. But if anyone wants to chat about any of the specifics of the tools, what license level do I need for that? What would be right for me? How would these tools work for our organization in this situation? More than happy to chat if you reach out. So with that, thank you. And I think, Kelly, we may have a little bit of time for questions if there are any questions.
Yeah, we don't have any in the chat at the moment. So if anybody has questions about any of the tools that Nicole ran through or any of the best practices for being a hybrid salesperson, feel free to throw those in the chat pane. One thing I wanted to mention to Nicole about the meetings link is that if you are already a HubSpot user, Nicole mentioned there's like other free meetings link tools and things out there. But if you're already using HubSpot, you would be much better off to use HubSpot's meetings link because it integrates with that contact timeline. So if that contact books a meeting from your meetings link, it's going to show up in their timeline. And then when you start that meeting, you can record it, you can take notes right on the contact timeline. Like it's all seamlessly integrated with the CRM. So that's really cool. And then you can also automate certain things based on them having booked a meeting. So like you could, send a follow-up email or set a property that you're using, in your sales process, things like that. You can do with the meetings activity as well. Greg, is there anything you wanted to chime in on? I know you've used some of these sales tools and the meetings links too. We don't have any questions at the moment.
No, I actually learned a lot from Nicole today. Because she's our pro. I participate in the process when she tells me to. So no, good stuff. Good stuff.
The other cool thing about the meetings link too, not to hammer it, but is that you could set up multiple ones for your team too. So like if you wanted to have a link so that you could book time on Greg and Nicole's calendar, like at the same time, you could set that up as a different link that you send out when you want that one.
Yeah. One of the things that we learned about that is we both have to have the same rules about calendar management. Nicole puts everything on her calendar, and I've missed a few times on local travel time and gotten people requesting meetings when I'm traveling between two places. And so you got to have the same protocols in place.
Yeah, if you're putting your calendar out there, it's out there, and it'll get booked, whatever it shows. So get a little crafty about reserving time you don't want blocked, but
looks like you're available when you're not. Well, if anybody has questions that you think of after the fact, like we said, Nicole's information is going to be included in the follow-up email, along with a link to that inbound sales and sales enablement guide on our site. That's totally free. It's out there just as a long form guide on our website. But if you do want to download a PDF copy from that page, that's available too. So if you want to pass that along to anybody on your team, that's a great way to do it. I can't think of anything else, Nicole. I don't know if you want to hang on for a couple of minutes or if we're good.
I think we're good. Like I said, if anyone wants to reach out to me, feel free. I'm not sure if my contact information will be on that follow-up.